How's it going, everybody? Stoner14 here, and welcome back to another reaction video. I'm going to be reacting to Film Theory's newest video of The Amazing Digital Circus is Lying to You. Now, I just gotta say, the fact that Glitch Productions has broken so many boundaries with The Amazing Digital Circus is actually quite astonishing, to be honest. The fact that Saberspark, the Film Theory, or, you know, PATT, who does all the different theory videos, constant review shows have talked about the Digital Circus. Tons of animators that I've never seen interact with SMG4 or Glitch Productions ever are making boundaries by interacting with them. It's absolutely incredible, I just gotta say. But anyways, I'm curious to see how this Amazing Digital Circus is lying to us in the way that PATT is saying. So we know that it's a false reality and that it's trying to lie to them about there's no way to escape. But I'm curious as to what specifically PATT is talking about when he's saying they're lying. So with that being said, let's find out in 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's the computer! Welcome to the Amazing Digital Circus! Jack's being strangled. Again, such a good pilot, I gotta be honest.
There is no escape. Ever.
Or so we think.
Hello, Internet.
Oh, that's cool!
Theory, the show that
Oh, now that's impressive, Matt. I gotta say.
Day after day after day, and we don't know why. Let's talk about the Amazing Digital Circus, shall we?
Sure thing!
Friends stumbled into an incredible world of wonders.
Where anything can happen, except for swearing. Wow.
In case you aren't caught up with this one, this is the latest series from the creative geniuses over at Glitch Productions.
Our boys, Luke and Kevin.
Gooseworks, a talented
and
artist who
Gooseworks,
also
of course,
composed
sorry.
music for both Has-Been
Didn't mean
Hotel
to-
and
didn't mean to
Hell of
not
Lost. And
credit
their
them.
creativity and
Sorry, I didn't mean to discredit Gooseworks. This is Gooseworks' action, but I'm just saying Kevin and Luke are the leaders of Glitch Productions. That's all. Sorry.
experience really come through with this one. I gotta say, you guys went crazy recommending this
Yeah,
one
it
to
was
us across
impressive.
comments, GT Live, and our subreddit, and it's pretty darn easy to see why. Between the amazing animation, gifable moments, and incredible cast of characters, and a storyline wrapped up in like 18 different layers of mystery, this is the perfect show for us to dive into. Which means that if you haven't watched the first full episode yet, go.
Oh, I've watched
Watch it after this theory. Though I'd be surprised if you hadn't, because this thing already has like 30 million views across the platform. It is doing
gone up
mighty well for itself. But
It's gone up to over 72 million views now. So yeah, it's doing astonishingly well.
just so we're all on the same page for today's theories, the pilot follows a woman named Pomni, who's
Yep.
thrust into a strange digital world
Or as we like to call her,
alongside 5 other humans. Jax, the lovable jerk, Ragatha, the sweet optimist, Gangle, who can't hide her emotions, Zubul, who's made out of a bunch of random objects, and Kinger, who's been trapped there the longest and has gone kinda crazy as a result. The whole circus is run by a ringleader named Kane, who according to the show's website is a, quote, wacky AI, and all of the humans are just subject to his every whim and desire.
Gadzooks, you're right, Jax. We should have a brand new adventure for our new member, Pomni.
I said that like 5 minutes ago.
However, the humans don't necessarily want to go on these adventures, and they're
Right.
constantly trying to find ways of getting out. This has even driven some of them insane.
Yeah,
leaving them
Kaufmo.
abstracted, where they devolve into monsters. Case in point, the clown Kaufmo was obsessed with finding the exit, and abstracts just before Pomni shows up.
Oh, Kaufmo's been obstructed. It's okay.
What is that?
And yet, even when Pomni does get herself to the exit in this pilot episode, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just
Yeah.
endless hallways and office spaces repeating. It is basically the
That's
bedroom.
true.
As it turns out, Kane
There's actually one thing I want to say about this that someone pointed out that I didn't notice initially, is that when she goes to the doors, the arrow is actually pointing away from the exit when she enters the door. But when she leaves the door that she just came out of, the door is then leading, the arrow on the sign leads back through that says exit, or leads to exit, trying to encourage her to go back instead of going forward, which is interesting to say the least.
made this fake exit, hoping to give the humans
I'm guessing
what
he's
they
going to talk
wanted,
about
just
that.
didn't know what to put on the other side.
I do have to apologize for lying about the exit. I was having so much trouble figuring out what to put on the other side and ended
Never
up
quite finishing it.
And more or less, that's where we leave the colorful cast of the Amazing Digital Circus after this first episode. Now,
Yeah.
already there's just so much world building here for us to dig into. So many questions posed that we want the answers to. Like, who's behind the Amazing Digital Circus? Is there an actual way out, or are they just trapped forever? Are characters
is a
like
good
Rocco
question.
really gone, or can they be brought back in some way?
I don't
And,
think
sorry
so.
to say, I don't have a whole lot of answers for those things. Not yet. For as much as Glitch and Gooseworks
Mm-hmm.
packed into the first episode, they've done the wise thing and not given us a whole lot of answers. But I do
That is
think
correct.
they've given us plenty here to theorize about. So here are 3 Amazing Digital Circus theories. Don't run for the exit doors
3
yet, my
theories in
friends.
one
We're
video?
going in. Let's
Wow.
start things off a bit small scale here. Theory number 1, everything in the show is literally a video game set in the late 1990s.
Right.
Now, there's a lot in just this one episode that paints this as a video game world. For example,
Correct.
right at the beginning, we see a pixelated title card for the show that's obviously in the style of old school PC, PlayStation, and N64 games. This
Yep.
is further driven home in a secret video that you can find if you go to wackywatch.com, a URL shown
Oh.
on the screen during the episode, which shows us the main menu for this game. We also see a flower pot fall to the ground.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of like an old school source engine glitch. Kane mentions that he created the digital world in the weird backrooms office area in a way that's very similar to how a game developer would create world spaces. Plus, when Pomni first enters the world, she says this.
I put on some weird headset and now I'm here.
Again, directly
Yeah.
implying that the whole thing is a game. She put on a VR headset and was transported into the world of the digital
And now she
circus.
can't get
All
out of
that
it.
checks out and should be pretty darn obvious to the casual viewer. But what you might have missed is the fact that this is set in the late 1990s and not the present day, like you might expect.
So
from
you're saying
something
it's
talking
experimental
about using
technology?
VR headsets. And there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that points us to this conclusion. First of all, basically all the tech that we see throughout the series seems to be pulling straight from the 90s. Anytime you see a computer in the show, it's always the white boxy styled
Yeah,
CRT
that one.
monitors and large white computer towers reminiscent of models made by companies like Dell and Gateway back in the 90s and early 2000s. And this is both in the actual episode and in the off-site material as well. In that same Wacky Watch commercial, we see a real-life computer with the same old-school design. What's more, the beginning of this Wacky Watch video says that this was an old tape recovered on a date that's censored. And given the degradation on that tape,
Ooh,
implies that not only is this
interesting.
video old, but it was also recovered in the past as well. But this goes beyond just the tech that's used in the series. Many of the characters and iconography from the show are very reminiscent of popular characters and ideas from the late 90s and early 2000s.
That is true.
Tommy's
That's what I
gesture design
noticed.
takes a lot of cues from Sega's old Nights into Dream series. Jax shares design inspiration and a similar name with Max, the rabbit, from the Sam
Huh.
Max games. Bubble clearly takes cues from Super Mario's Chain Chomps. Jax and Gangle were both inspired by characters like Poppy the Performer, an old Japanese 3D animated series, while Kane and the Digital Circus setup's very reminiscent of the villain and plot of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a short story by Harlan Ellison adapted into a point-and-click adventure game in 1995. Anyway,
Yeah,
you
I
slice it,
think
it's very
that's
clear
actually
that the
what-
creators
I think that's actually what a lot of people had said that this show is a lot like. It's a lot like that very thing, which is interesting. I've never actually heard of it myself.
want the show to have the same 90s vibe that we're all so nostalgic for right now. But you might be thinking, hold on, they're talking about VR headsets here. That's a modern thing, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't this thing just be inspired
For the most part,
by
it
the
is.
1990s rather than set in the 1990s? That's a pretty good call out. A lot of advances in virtual reality technology have only been made across the last decade, especially when
Yeah.
we're talking about gaming. That doesn't mean that VR technology didn't exist back in the 1990s. And
No,
I'm not just
I
talking
mean,
about
yeah,
the
not entirely.
rudimentary
The
black and
Virtual
red
Boy,
wireframes
yeah.
of the Virtual Boy either. Back in 1991,
Oh,
Sega announced
not the
the
Virtual
Sega
Boy?
VR. In 1993, Virtuality created the Mega Visor display, and in 1995, Fort Technology hit us with the VFX-1 headset, just to name a few.
Oh.
And looking into old footage of all these things, it doesn't look too dissimilar to the sort of world that we see in the Amazing Digital Circus.
No,
Simple,
not
flat
at all.
Textures, rudimentary shapes and polygons. There's not a lot of detail here, but that's for good reason. These headsets, they couldn't handle a lot of detail. True story,
Yeah.
I actually have some first-hand experience with these rudimentary headsets. The Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland, Ohio actually had a special exhibit on VR technology in its basement when I was a kid, and it blew my mind. With the amount of wires and cables these things took to run, it felt like you were jacking into the Matrix, and you had to wait 45 minutes to
Well, I mean, back then, computers were also very complex at the time. Heck, one of the first computers was about the size of a room, if you know. So I could figure that a VR headset would have to require that if it was in its, like, prototype or its very primitive design.
put on one of these headsets, but all of a sudden you were dropped into a video game. It was simple. I was walking through a purple field with a bunch of green triangular mountains in the background, but it was effective, and it captured my imagination for decades since. So much so that even though it was a 5-minute experience that happened in my life like 2 decades ago, I still remember it vividly to this very day. Anyway, MatPat childhood stories aside, the long and short of all of this, everything that we see in the series is pointing to this taking place in the past and not in the present. All of this has already happened from our perspective. We're just watching the events of the game unfold. So now that we know that we're in a 1990s video game here, let's dig a bit deeper, shall we? Theory number 2.
All right, what's theory number 2?
Create this hell simulation that they're currently stuck in. It's a pretty bold claim, so what would make me say that?
Are you implying that she was like one of the workers and she was like one of the test subjects and now she can't get out? Honestly, that is something I did kind of think about.
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, one of the scenes that really jumped out to me while I was watching and rewatching the pilot was the sequence where Pomni's running through the back rooms on the other side of the exit door. At one point, she enters a more traditional-looking office space with computers and cubicles before stopping and staring at one desk in particular.
Right, that must have been her desk.
Moment. We linger on this shot for
and there's the headset right there.
Classic horror-esque.
So, like, you saw that, right? Hold on. Yeah, there's the headset on the table, so that must have been her desk.
For a long time, as a classic horror-esque dolly zoom hits both the desk and Pomni before she has herself a psychological break. The lights start to flicker and she cackles uncomfortably before running on. The whole thing is really menacing and off-putting and clearly meant to leave us with a big impression. Why? Well, because this desk isn't just some simulation that Kane cooked up in the back rooms. It's based on a real place in the real world of this universe outside of the simulation. A place that we actually see in the episode. At the very end, right before the credits roll, we zoom out of the circus and through the void, revealing that all of this has been taking place inside of a computer. That makes sense. We've already established that this right here is a big old simulation. But take a look at the computer and the desk. It's the exact same setup that we saw earlier in the episode in the backroom section. The same old equipment on the left, the same file cabinets on the right, the same retro monitor and keyboard
the headset,
and computer tower and speakers, the same VR headset and headphones. This is exactly the same. But clearly this one's in the real world. Not only have we literally zoomed out of the computer, implying that we're no longer in said simulation, but the lighting in the scene is much more natural. It's warmer. Sunlight is streaming through the
feels more realistic.
Window, all at an angle because the sun's lower in the sky. This is not the flat computer simulation lighting that we've been seeing throughout the rest of the episode. That right there, the desk and computer setup existing both in the simulation and in the real world, is already a pretty interesting point, but why then would it break Pomni? What causes her to go off the deep end and start laughing? Well, I think that's
what is it?
Pomni recognizes that this is her desk. At the beginning of the episode, they make it clear that Pomni has lost her human memories. But this, I believe, is triggering a deep realization inside of her. Based on what we're given here, I believe that Pomni's human persona is an employee at CNA, the company developing the digital circus game and VR headset. And seeing it here inside the game unlocks some weird flash of her memory as to what's happening to get her into this situation. She's trapped in the very game that she helped to create. It's ironic, hence why she laughs. It's funny.
You know, is that so? Would potentially everyone else be a test subject as well, or working for there as well? And would that mean that the void itself maybe projects memories that you do remember as a human, like in your real world scenario, and that's why Pomni remembered it, because she escaped for a moment to look out into the void, and she found all this first? That could be an interesting idea. I bet that's what he's going to say.
It's darkly funny. I can see this being a huge reveal down the line, and one that could be potentially devastating for all the rest of our characters. For Pomni, obviously, but also for all the other characters who are trapped in here who would be seeing her as the one to blame for their current imprisonment. Also, real quick, super short micro theory. I don't think we have enough information to figure out what the initials
I didn't think about that, actually.
C and A stand for, but one possibility that did jump out to me, it could potentially stand for Cain and Abel, partially named after the AI ringleader of the simulation Cain, which would then lead itself to a lot of interesting story possibilities. You see, Cain and Abel are a pair of brothers who are the sons of Adam and Eve, with Cain ultimately killing his brother and creating the first ever murder in the world. Anyway, you know how we love ourselves a good biblical reference here, and I just wanted to mention it in case we get more clues in future episodes. Do have more than enough to say about theory number 3. All the characters aren't actually humans trapped inside the digital circus. Instead, they're all digital copies of the brains of humans who've put on these headsets, cloned and then forced into the simulation. simulation. Now, this is a pretty big swing. I mean, Pomni's first line of the series is practically, "Oh no, I'm a human who put on a headset and now I'm trapped here." And then Kane follows it up with this.
My, it appears a new human has entered this realm!
Yeah.
He calls her a human, and that actually lines up with what we've seen with the official synopsis, explicitly calling Pomni and the others humans, in contrast to Kane being an AI. Quote from that synopsis: "A woman gets trapped in a crazy virtual world along with 5 other humans and are now subject to the whims of wacky AI and their own personal traumas." Plus, I just personally like the image of a bunch of people strapped into these VR headsets a la Sword Art Online. But all of that being said, I believe that there's a lot of evidence pointing towards these characters being computerized clones rather than actual humans. For instance, as I mentioned above, Pomni starts going a bit crazy when she sees her desk from the real world in the circus's back rooms. But think, what was actually on that desk? A headset. Pretty clearly a headset that is not on any human's head. And that's not just a thing in the simulation, it's also on the desk in the real world too that we see in the final shot of the pilot. If there's a human trapped in the digital circus here with a headset firmly planted on their head that they can't get off, shouldn't they, you know, be stuck there with the headset on their head? Given the little that we have to go off of right now, it makes
that's a
more
good
sense
point.
that Pomni put on the headset, had her consciousness copied into the game, and then she just took off the headset to go home. Meanwhile, Pomni in the game can't take it off because she's not a flesh and blood human anymore. She's a digital copy whose memories begin the moment the headset was put on. And even if we're wrong and this desk isn't Pomni's, all the other characters went through this exact same process when they first joined, as Jax hinted at when he sarcastically said,
How do I take this headset off?
Just keep grabbing at it. That works for all of us.
They all tried the exact same thing, and it didn't work for any of them. They're all digital copies grasping at a VR headset that isn't there anymore. But you know the thing that really convinced me of this theory? The mannequins. Yeah, did you notice these guys?
Yeah, I noticed plenty of them.
Several artist mannequins populating the circus. You know, these are the things that artists will sometimes buy to help them get references for poses. Most prominently, we see them in the restaurant with Kane and Bubble acting as background characters. But why would they matter? Well, we know that Kane can create NPCs.
Kane, is this one of your NPCs, or is this a new sucker?
So maybe these mannequins are just random, nameless characters that Kane made up to fill in the circus. Maybe, but that just doesn't sit right with me. First off, the dolls are clearly capable of emotions. We see one get upset when Pomni interrupts it taking a bath, silently screaming at Pomni until she slams the door.
Oh, that was such a good joke in that episode.
There's something more going on here than just these things being background extras. Take a look at this. When Ragatha is showing Pomni to her room, there are several other doors for other characters.
Right, and one of them had a mannequin on.
A piece of world building. We see that each of the current characters have themselves their own rooms, as well as
like right there.
Characters that we haven't
met
yet. There's this colorful one that I can't quite make out, what looks to be a pinkish purple goo monster, some sort of cute doggo, green and orange anteater looking guy, a black queen chess piece that I'm gonna guess is named Queenie, seems to be
Right. And this was a theory that people had stated that is probably Kinger's wife, and because she's gone now, it's likely that's why he's especially crazy. At least that's what people think.
Kinger's counterpart, implying that he didn't come into the simulation alone. Regardless, all of these portraits have giant red X's over them, and that checks out. These are likely characters that have abstracted in the past, just like Kaufmo did. We even see other abstracted creatures in the cellar when Kane banishes Kaufmo. Anyway, along with these past and current characters, we also see several doors with blank mannequins on them. Not just one, but multiple doors. If I had to guess what's going on here, when a new human enters the game, these rooms transform into one that's appropriate for them, and the mannequin on the door transforms into their character. And what's more, I believe that there's a mannequin in the game that also transforms into that character. Right now, they're placeholders, but they get molded into these human copies whenever someone new puts on the headset, and their brain gets scanned into the system. That would fit thematically with the idea of the mannequins to begin with. They're supposed to be used as references and then turned into something real when you're using
that is
artwork.
interesting,
That would also
actually.
fit with the fact that they're on the doors of all these empty rooms, and the characters being scanned clones of human brains would fit the fact that they can't take off their headsets despite us seeing a headset not being worn at a desk that is clearly meant to be Pomni's. It just all fits with what we've seen from the series so far. In short, the series is gaslighting us. It isn't about a bunch of humans trapped in a simulation, it's about a bunch of human consciousnesses that have been scanned into an AI system and then mapped onto blank mannequin bodies.
That's
where the
actually
computer can then
interesting.
simulate their human behavior and push their buttons to the breaking point, learning the weak.
That could explain a lot of what Kane is doing, actually. Maybe that's why he's trying so hard to stop them from trying to escape. Because if they find out that they're a digital conscious and they abstract, then that makes a lot of sense, actually. Holy crap!
weaknesses of the human psyche. And then, when they've had too much and abstract out of the system, well, then you just boot up another new simulation and try again.
Right.
There is no exit door, just an endless loop of torturous tests run by Kane as he tries to understand the human experience. Just like a real circus, all of it is just a big performance.
I see.
Hey, you know a character in the show that I think is criminally underrated?
What?
Bubbles. This adorable
Bubble.
little bubble doggo seems like they're willing to eat just about anything.
Okay, yeah, sorry, he had a product placement there that I couldn't put in. But that is actually incredibly interesting to think about. So, it's not actually anyone trapped in the dimension or trapped in the digital world, but it's a digital conscious that was copied from the person who put on the headset. That is actually kind of interesting to think about. It would actually make sense as to why Kane is, like I said, is why Kane is trying to stop them. Because a lot of people theorize that Kane is actually not the bad guy, and a lot of people point that Gooseworks themselves said that Kane wasn't a bad guy. So, I mean, if that were true, again, assuming that is true, just for this moment, that would mean that the reason Kane is trying to stop them would be so that they couldn't find out that they're a digital entity and that they wouldn't almost immediately extract realizing what they are and that they're not a real person. But for him to do that as a study of the human consciousness and the human experience, that is actually quite an interesting development there. It actually makes a lot more sense now that I realize it. So I think I believe this theory for now. This is actually a really good theory, like the number ultimately. Like, I mean, again, MatPat has tons of good theories, some of them more believable than others. No, again, he does his best, but sometimes, again, some of them are believable, some of them are just not. You know, it's just how I think. This one, I definitely believe. I think that maybe it is gaslighting us and that there's not actually people trapped. It's AI realizing they're not human and that they're AI. Where Kane is trying to stop them from realizing that. Because, I mean, he himself knows he's an AI, so maybe he's trying to stop them from going crazy as a result. You know? That could be it. Alright, this was a very good video. I really liked that. Good job. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts about it. I think this is a really impressive theory. And I will definitely keep it in mind as I react to the next episode of The Digital Circus whenever it comes out. So being that said, make sure to support and like and subscribe to this to MatPat's video of Film Theory. Make sure to like and subscribe to Glitch Productions and The Amazing Digital Circus. It is an astounding pilot, and I cannot wait for the next episode. And if you like my reaction, like and subscribe to me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!